Welcome to another episode of Fresh Brewed Politics. If you're watching live on Facebook, I have no idea if Facebook even sends out notifications anymore when we go live. For all I know, there's nobody watching or somebody watching, as Facebook has shadow banned us, as Facebook has throttled us. But we're also available on YouTube. If you can, though, and you are watching on Facebook, please go ahead and hit the share button. Hit it as many times as you can. Share it in like 20 places. We got to break the algorithm of Facebook, who's trying to throttle us back. They gave us a strike for putting up the court case videos the other day, streaming those. So we can definitely use your guys' help by hitting the share button. If you're watching this as a replay on Facebook, please, you can always go to the podcast version on Apple and Spotify and other places. Additionally, as well, you can follow us in many places. We're on Twitch now. I don't know how that works, but they set me up today in the office on Twitch. I'm on YouTube, of course. I guess I'm on Gab and MeWe and a lot of others. So if on your favorite alternative social media sites, just search Brewed Co, BREWEDCO. And also, too, as well, like I said, you can help by sharing and spreading the word about us as much as possible. They are trying to get rid of us as much as they can, so please hit those share buttons. Once again, guys, if you want to support us, you can go to the coffee shop there at Malibu and Nicholasville. We are having our ABC hearing this Friday. We'll be live streaming that, so you can feel free to tune in. But please, come drink our beer Thursday night. After 5 o'clock, it's $1.25 domestics. And we have Cane Run Bluegrass Band plays at 7. Come out, drink our beer. Who knows if on Saturday you'll be able to drink our beer or not. We will let you know. However, I thank you guys for joining me. And one more thing, too. ABC 36 Viewer Choice Awards. Please, please, please go on there and vote for us for Best Coffee House. We thank you so, so much. And getting into it today, we've got the Fayette County Public Schools is paying $70,000 to a search firm to find the next superintendent. $70,000. I tell you what, Fayette County Public Schools, for the low, low price of $60,000, I'll find them for you. You didn't give me a chance to bid on it. Was that an open bid? I want to know, because I would have bid on that and I would have came in lower than $70,000. I'd be like, yeah, I'll post some ads on Indeed for you for a couple of bucks. But of course, that's not what they're doing. They're paying $70,000 because, one, they need somebody else to blame, and two, they're trying to check mark boxes because they're real important about making sure that it's, of course, they've said it out loud. They're looking for minorities. They're looking for specific individuals that check mark boxes. Not that they're skilled, not that they're going to teach your kid a course, but do they hit the intersectional boxes that they need to hit? That is what they're worried about. And I can tell you this much, guys, they're paying $70,000 to do it. But what's more interesting is they're using the firm Asher to do the search. Now, who is Asher? Well, last year, the Kentucky Board of Education gave them $150,000 to find a new commissioner. Now, that was under Andy Beshear. Now, under Papa Beshear, Andy's father, when he was governor, they were 3 times over the course of 8 years asked to hire somebody for the Kentucky Board of Education commissioner. 3 times in 8 years. You think they do a better job of finding somebody who can stick? If you have an average amount of time lasting of less than 3 years that people are recruiting for you, please explain me why you keep hiring them and why do you keep paying them so much money. I mean, last year we're talking KBE gave them $150,000 to find the commissioner. I didn't know there was so much money in finding people to run education programs. I thought there's so few jobs out there for it. So at this high level, it must not be the most difficult thing, but I guess they are incapable of doing it. It makes you wonder, what does the board do, right? If the board can't be searching for their own people, if the Fayette County School Board can't be searching for their own people, if the Kentucky Board of Education can't be searching for their own commissioners, for their own superintendents, why are they even exist? Clearly, it is a misuse of money, in my opinion. And it seems like a payoff of donors. I know Asher has some other connections there to the Beshears outside of the massive amounts of money they're being paid. Now, moving on to some more national, across the nation news as far as it goes. And once again, please hit that share button for us if you're tuning in. Facebook is holding us back, so hit the share, break that algorithm. All right, so McConnell comes out. They're trying to put together this January 6th investigation. So they're trying to, of course, investigate into the insurgency that was a January 6th. Now, if you are like me, you probably, much like myself, look around at that and say, listen, do I think there were some bad actors? Sure. I think the majority of those people, because those of you who haven't been to the Capitol, if you've ever been to the Capitol, you can just walk in the Capitol building. You are allowed to do that. You can walk into a lot of the side buildings. You're supposed to go through a security checkpoint, but it is open to you to walk in. As I understand it, on January 6th, it was wide open. And most of these people were probably just strolling in. I talked to my wife about it. I said, if I was there and the doors were open and people are just walking in calmly, I'd be walking in too. But, of course, we got to launch this giant investigation about it. Why? Well, because Trump's no longer in office, but we need the distraction to distract from the terrible, horrible policies that the Biden administration has been executing on. We've seen some pretty terrible results coming out of the Biden administration, and Orange Man Bad isn't hiding it for them anymore. They need this January 6th investigation to continue to hide Orange Man Bad. It's got nothing to do with caring what really went on. They don't care. They don't care at all. But McConnell came out and said, no, we will filibuster that. And that has pretty much killed it in the wild, much to Nancy Pelosi's chagrin. We'll see if they try to jam something through, try to make some deal on it. But nationally, I don't think that will be the case. I don't think that'll be the case. Additionally, we've got the ugly monopoly of Live Nation and TicketMaster rearing its head again. For those who are unaware, how TicketMaster, it's rearing its head because TicketMaster is making noise like they're going to require vaccination in order to go to their events. Now, you could be saying, well, why can't we just use somebody else, right? This is where the free market will provide, and it'll provide an opportunity for somebody else to come out that does the same thing. But here's the problem, okay? Ticketmaster, this is how the concert industry works. So, like, if Rump Arena has a concert, okay, it doesn't go out and it doesn't, book some guy, let's say, I don't know, Luke Bryant or whatever, if you're into that guy. They don't go out and they book them. That's not what happens. What happens is a promoter goes out and books them, fronts the money pays, like Rump Arena to use the arena, pays the artist to do it, and then keeps all the money from the ticket sales. So it's a profit-making situation. So, if like Luke Bryant's doing a tour and it's a 50-city tour, a promoter has booked him for those 50 tours. He's getting paid, maybe, I don't know, let's say $400,000 a show or $200,000 a show, whatever his going rate is. I don't know what it is. But let's say he's being paid $200,000 a show over those 50 shows. So, he making, what is that, $10 million? So he'd make that $10 million, but it's paid out of by the promoter. And then the promoter turns around, books the venues, makes some money off the tickets. Well, Live Nation was the biggest promoter in the nation, promoting a good chunk of the shows. And Ticketmaster came in, and they were handing the sales for almost 75-80% of the shows. And if you remember, there was at one point where I believe Metallica was trying to break free of Ticketmaster, and Ticketmaster turned around and was telling people, hey, if you book Metallica, we're not going to sell you tickets at your events anymore. Well, Live Nation and Ticketmaster have gotten together, and they have a stranglehold on the industry. Basically, if you're a major star, there's nobody else you're going to play for other than Live Nation. If you have one of these venues, there's nobody else really booking Rump Arena other than Live Nation. And of course, Ticketmaster's the one selling the tickets. So if you want to go to live concert, live music, what have you, you have to do whatever Ticketmaster says. They control something like 90% to 100% of all the major concert venues. Now, naturally, this is going to be a problem, and it creates an incentive for the individuals you guys look up to that are not medical experts, like country music stars, rock stars, pop music stars, to be coming out and advocating for people to get vaccinated, because they can't make money going to these shows unless people are vaccinated. So it's creating an incentive other than profits from the customer to do it, because Ticketmaster can turn around to the event venues and say, well, if you rent out to other people, we're not bringing any shows to you anymore, which will cost them a lot of money. So they're not going to go book somebody else. And it's putting people in a position. And what's worse is live music had been on the rise. I mean, 2019 was one of the biggest years for live music in decades. But yet, here we go. We're dealing with this situation now. We'll see how it affects the music industry. But it's more coercion coming out of the private industry, causing and forcing individuals to get vaccinated if you want to see them. They are already doing a vaccinated or a negative COVID test requirement, but now they're making noise that they're just going to move to just vaccinated, which of course is anti-scientific, as you guys know. Immunity, it's unclear, but it seems like, based on all the studies, that there's equal amount of immunity given for having had been vaccinated compared to having had COVID. So far, all the studies say it appears to at least be the same. Pfizer, Moderna, of course, in their source material have said that there is no, they didn't find any added benefit for people who've had COVID to getting vaccinated. So, of course, it's focusing on one of the wrong indicators. But, there you go. Live Nation Ticketmaster rearing its ugly head again. Moving on here, we're going to talk a little bit about Michigan. There's some funny stuff happening up in Michigan with Gretchen Whitmer, Governor Whitmer up there, who might be worse than Governor Beshear as she attempts to tank an entire other country's economy. So, to give you some idea what's going on there, Gretchen Whitmer back in March, she flew to Florida to see her father, okay? And when she flew to Florida to see her father, she booked, for the cost of $27,521, a private plane to fly her to Florida from a nonprofit that she controls. And the nonprofit paid the $27,521. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, first, the trip is under investigation by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Why? Well, it turns out that the private plane she booked couldn't legally be chartered for those flights. And so the FAA is investigating into that plane trip, which of course is giving her more bad headlines as she was traveling when she had her own advisements not to travel. And so the FAA is investigating this, saying, hey, listen, this plane wasn't able to be chartered, but you turn around, you chartered this plane. How did this happen? Who did it occur, and who's held liable? Because it could be possible her nonprofit is possibly going to be held liable for chartering this plane. But on top of that, on top of the FAA investigation, now we have the IRS coming in to investigate this situation, and they say, hey, how did you pay for this plane again? Oh, that's right. You used a nonprofit that you control in order to pay for this flight. And this nonprofit, that looked like a personal expense because you're flying just to see your father. And because it was a personal expense, that could have been illegally costed over to the nonprofit. So she's under investigation by the FAA. She's under investigation by the IRS, all for taking a trip that violated her own COVID recommendations and COVID policies. All for doing it. So what does she do? Well, let's look at when Joe Biden is facing bad headlines for, bad economic policy, gas shortages, gas lines, things like that. They change gears and they throw out a good COVID headline. You can take your mask off if you've been vaccinated to distract away from him. So what's the governor doing? Well, kind of doing a little reverse Biden. She has decided that she's going to create an energy crisis, not only in her own state, but even in another country, which enters the Line 5 pipeline issue. So Governor Whitmer has decided, because she is not only an expert in COVID, she's also now an expert in pipelines. So she's talking about this a pipeline here, and she's canceling the easements and demanding that this pipeline here, which is Line 5, and it's operated by Enbridge, to cease operations in 180 days, and then saying if you continue to operate after 180 days, all your profits are subject to being seized by the state of Michigan. So she's saying close your pipeline. Well, guys, around about 45% of Canada's oil is pumped through this pipeline, as well as the majority of the natural gas used by Michigan comes through this pipeline, creating gas shortages in Canada and natural gas shortages in her own home state. And she says this because of environmental concerns. It's a ticking time bomb. Guys, this line has been open for 70 years. 70 years this line has been opened. And to throw it on top, a little bit of an issue, and Enbridge is saying, no, we're not going to stop pumping until we get a court order. And part of that is because the federal government has a treaty that back in 1977, it's called the Pipelines Treaty. It's between Canada and the United States, and it requires a 10-year notice period before either party can withdraw from the treaty. So Enbridge is going to ignore the order, and they're going to cite the federal government's treaty with Canada in order to keep pumping in its pipeline. And meanwhile, she's creating this either false controversy to distract away from it that she doesn't plan on following through with because she knows she can't, and she's just trying to send up a little signal to all of her fans that, look at me, I care about the environment. Or she's really planning on trying to close down this pipeline. Should Line 5 be closed, guys, it would take 800 tanker rail cars and 2,000 trucks each day to move oil from Michigan into Canada. And guys, in just tolls alone, we did some math on the two bridges they'd have to cross and the toll cost per axle and everything else. Guys, we're talking around at least $50 million a year more into the Michigan state government in revenues just from the toll fees alone. Just from the toll fees alone, they're talking an extra $50 million, not to mention all the other fees you get for the trucks. The other reason she could be doing this is because one of her major contributors constantly has been the Teamsters. Tons of money the Teamsters have been given to her, and the Teamsters represent a good amount of truckers and driving and transportation and rail. They represent a lot of different groups, but one of their major groups that they originally covered was transportation. And if the Teamsters are coming in and now getting to run 2,000 more trucks a day, in Michigan carrying this oil, if she shuts down this pipeline, does that help out her donors? Of course it does. Now, I'm not trying to say she's, putting an entire country's economy at risk to distract from the fact that she ignored her own COVID guidelines, flew illegally on a plane, and then paid for it illegally. I would never suggest that that's the case. However, it appears to be that she's trying to distract away from it. On my side of things, I think she, it just seems oddly convenient. She decides at this moment to do it. And so, to distract away from an oil shortage, you take down COVID guidelines. I guess to distract away from you ignoring your own COVID guidelines, you create an oil shortage in another country and a natural gas shortage in your own state. Let's just distract them all away from it. And I think that's what's going. Meanwhile, giving a pat on the back to my donors to let them know I've got them covered. I'm going to give you millions more in union fees. Let me take care of you. And, that is pretty terrible things. Governor Beshear does a lot of terrible things. Governor Whitmer appears to be doing some pretty terrible things as well. Some pretty terrible things as well. As a reminder, guys, please go ahead and hit the share button if you're tuning in. Facebook is throttling us back. And if we normally have several at least above 100 people watching on Facebook. Of course, they're throttling us to about 10 to 20% of that. So please hit the share button if you can. And if you're listening too, remember to come onto our page on a regular basis, because they're not going to show you our posts anymore. You have to manually come onto our page to make sure they show. So coming out of Congress, we have some congressmen and women, Congress people, Congress X's, Congress Tinkses, Congress individuals who are in Congress who are ignoring Pelosi's unscientific guidelines. One of them is Kentucky's very own Thomas Massie, and he's pretty fed up. I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and this was after Biden's fiasco, called a State of a Union type address, but it was kind of late. And he was, I asked him, I said, Thomas, does the chamber normally sit at like 50% capacity and that's spaced out like it was for that day, for that presser? And he said, well, Andrew, no, normally not. It's all for show. And now, after having most of the people in that chamber vaccinated, and after the CDC guidelines coming out, Nancy Pelosi is still leaving in her mask guidelines. Why? Out of spite, of course. She knows the Republicans don't want to wear the mask. She knows the Republicans know that it's nothing but a virtue signal and a Democrat symbol of their virtue and of their party, and that's what it is. And she wants to mandate those Republicans wear it as much as she can to show their support. Well, several Congress individuals decided they're going to stand up. They're going to say no more, and they're not wearing their masks anymore on the House floor, as that is anti-scientific. I know Massey posted up a picture of him throwing away his citation, and he's getting fined $500 a day every day he doesn't wear a mask. So, if I was you guys, I don't know, I would maybe donate to Congressman Massey. You can donate to us too, donate.brewedco.com, shameless plug. But also as well, you could check out Thomas Massie, maybe toss them a few bucks, as they are paying that $500 fine every day for not wearing a mask, because they are taking a stand. And that's important too. $2,500 a day now. They're getting, Nick's coming in saying they're getting charged $2,500 a day now because Nancy Pelosi's like, put on that mask. And they're saying, no, I'm not going to do it. That's the kind of fighter I like. Those are the kind of fighters we stand for here. So please support Congressperson Massie as well. So that's just kind of covering maybe some national news, some other state news too as well. But I want to take a moment to talk about, what does liberty mean to me? We've had a lot of people, as we're posting about kind of what we're doing moving forward, saying, oh man, I thought it was all about choice. Now, of course, those people are detractors. They don't understand the liberty philosophy because they never will. But they sit there and say, oh, it's all about choice, and now you're fighting against choice. No. Liberty and choice means you're free from the government and repercussions from the government for making free choices, right? You're free from the government forcing down their opinions on you. It doesn't, other people's opinions on you. It doesn't mean you're free from their opinions. It doesn't mean if you're for liberty, you suddenly now don't have opinions. Of course you do. In fact, the liberty philosophy is an endorsement of the fact that you have opinions and there's other ways to effectuate it. Give you an example. I was having a conversation about, hey, we need to start engaging in the culture wars. And somebody came on and was like, well, we can't be complaining about culture war and come back out and everything else. And it goes, well, hold on here. Cancel culture to me means if you're talking about getting, like we are, throttled or deplatformed off social media because they don't like your message while enjoying protections from the government, that's cancel culture to me, right? But a private business doing what a private business does, and then the free market reacting to it, is absolutely, to me, not cancel culture. What do I mean by that? Well, you have, let's pretend, I know Walmart's making noise, but let's pretend after June 11th, there's a business like Costco that's still requiring their staff to wear masks after it's no longer state mandated. You only have, as a staff member, really one choice. You can quit. That's it. You do not, unless you have an actual medical exemption. You can listen to our podcast that we had with Chris Weiss on it, our last podcast where we touched on this at the very beginning. You do not have a legal way to not wear a mask at work if your work requires it. You just don't. I know everybody hears these legal theories. Everybody talks about HIPAA. HIPAA does not apply to your employer quite the same way you think it does. Like I said, I encourage you to listen to that last podcast. But all the Walmart employees or Costco employees can do is quit. Or they can tell a bunch of like-minded people about it. And those like-minded people can say, we no longer want to come to your business. I'm going to let you know we no longer want to come to your business because you're requiring your staff to wear masks. And that's anti-scientific. And I don't want to support a business that is anti-scientific. That is perfectly within the reason of liberty. Why? Because I'm not using the force of government to force down onto you my beliefs. I'm using the forces of the free market and the social contract to get you to go a way of my opinion. That is in fact endorsed by the liberty mindset, because it states you don't need government force for good ideas, because the free market and society will reward those who have good ideas. They'll reward good ideas. And so for that reason, I see a lot of people that don't understand the liberty. Of course, on the other side, trying to claim if we somehow say to people or have an opinion that says you shouldn't be wearing a mask, now the CDC has said you don't have to, especially, then somehow we're not allowed to have opinions anymore because we're liberty oriented. And it's just not true. You can absolutely have opinions. You can absolutely gather people together to voice those same opinions. You can absolutely engage in the culture wars and push that Overton window in the direction you want to go. You just can't use government force to get it done. I'll give you perhaps an example of how this looks. And I'm not saying this is my personal viewpoints or anything else. I'm just saying this is a perfect example of how this works. If we rewind a few years to something like gay marriage, okay? You can say the government should not have the right to regulate who you get married to or not. That's between you, your creator, and the person you're marrying. You can say that it is not government's role to regulate marriage. You shouldn't have to get a marriage license to get married. You can say that. I believe that. While also believing that perhaps morally something like gay marriage might be wrong. I'm not saying I necessarily believe that. What I'm saying is you can hold a belief that government shouldn't force down your beliefs of saying gay marriage might be wrong or saying that you don't agree with it, while also still having the opinion. It's okay. Just because I don't want government to mandate something doesn't mean I have it. The perfect example of this in modern times would be something like Ron Paul. Ron Paul got a lot of attention for the fact that he wanted to legalize most, if not all, drugs. And he got that attention because people are like, oh, so you want people to do drugs? And he goes, and his responses are always so great. He says, you mean to tell me if drugs were legal now, you would go do them right now? No, I don't want people doing drugs. I'm saying it's none of the government's business what a person is necessarily putting in their body when it comes to that side of things. Now, that is an endorsement of doing drugs. I'm not saying I want drugs to be legal. What I'm saying is that's a perfect example of what it means to believe you don't want your government to force down something on people because you're a liberty individual while still holding an opinion that you're against it. So I implore all of you out there, all you liberty people, we naturally types of people that want to be left alone, we can no longer do that. We've seen what these people are willing to do. We've seen that these people are willing to come for everything. We've seen these people hate us. We've seen these people want to take everything from you. And if we continue to lay down, they will continue just to take, take from us. And I'm saying no more. We're no longer going to just lay down and let bygones be bygones and just keep compromising away everything. We will not ask our government to enforce our viewpoint. We will not do anything other than shrink our government down to as small as we possibly can, but we will engage in the social media wars, the social wars, the culture wars. We will engage in those types of activities because we're not just going to sit on the sidelines anymore. And I think that's a real key thing to understand. And don't let people who don't even begin to understand your philosophy somehow try to tear you down for doing it. Don't let them do it. I'm telling you guys right now, don't let them do it. I thank you guys for joining us so much. Please go to our Facebook page, share something, share this, share a post, comment on it. They like comments a lot on Facebook. We're trying to break the algorithm as much as possible. You need to make sure you're going to our page every day. They're not going to show you our page anymore, guys. They're limiting us down to 1/10, 120, or 10 to 20% of the reach we normally get. A lot of you guys watching this maybe didn't even get a notification that we went live, so please do that. Please support us. You can go to donate.brewedco.com, donate.brewedco.com. You can also go to shop.brewedco.com, BREWEDCO.com. And once again, guys, please let people know about us. Share us out there. We've got some big things coming the next couple of days. We're going to be rolling out some things to get us a little more social media independent. Of course, we're working on Project Uncancelable for this very reason. You can also follow us on other social media sites. I don't have a Telegram. I don't know what it is. But you can follow us on most other social media sites at BrewedCo. At BrewedCo. Most of them is BREWEDCO is our handles. I thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you Monday. We'll see you Friday with one another episode, but two, our live stream of our ABC hearing. I appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for joining us.